So this is the brand new Toyota Veloz, a compact MPV that is both a replacement for the aging Avanza as well as a much more upmarket alternative to the Perodua Alza. So is it actually worth spending a full 20,000 ringgit more for this over the Alza? And how does it compare to its actual price rivals, the Honda BRV and Mitsubishi Xpander? Everything that's good and bad about this car coming right up, so let's go. This review is powered by BH Petrol Infinity. Switch to the premium fuel today to enjoy more power and better fuel economy. So let's not beat around the bush over here. This Toyota Veloz under the skin is nearly identical to the Perodua Alza. There are key differences between the two, of course, but the one that people is talking about the most is, of course, the price difference. The Perodua Alza goes for 75,000 ringgit, while this goes for 95,000 ringgit here in Malaysia. But don't think for a second that that is a situation that is unique to Malaysia alone. Right over in Indonesia, you can have this, the Toyota Veloz, which is priced significantly higher than the Daihatsu Xenia. That is essentially the same as our Alza, of course. Badge engineering is real. It's a very common industry practice. Even within Toyota, the brand new BZ4X EV, there is also a much more expensive premium Lexus version called the RZ. Even in Europe, there is the Seat Leon, which is a much cheaper version of the Volkswagen Golf. Moving further up, there is also the Audi e-tron GT, under the skin almost exactly the same as the Porsche Taycan. In each of these cases, there are proper markets for both vehicles. This is called badge engineering. It's not pure rebadging. There's a clear difference between the two. But let's put the Alza aside for a minute and talk about the Avanza, the car that this effectively replaces. The Avanza was Toyota's original affordable MPV, but it is such a long-serving model. It first came out in early 2000s, for nearly 20 years now. When it first came out, I was still in school. In my Alza review, I mentioned the second generation model is such a huge leap forward compared to the original, but with this, the jump is even bigger. It's gigantic. Can you imagine if the Toyota Camry from the early 2000s changed from that directly into the car that we know today? Yeah, that's what the Veloz feels like now. Under the skin, there is a fundamental change between the two. The Avanza sat on an old school ladder frame chassis with a rear wheel drive layout, while the new Veloz sits on the very latest and modern DNGA monocoque or unibody platform with a front wheel drive setup. So while the Avanza was a utility MPV designed to carry heavy loads for work and whatnot, this had passengers, families and comfort in mind. There is such a big difference between the two. Now let's get back to the Alza comparisons, because from the front, this angle, you can hardly ever tell that the two cars are even remotely related to each other. From here, everything you see looks completely different from this car compared to the Alza. This is a big change compared to the previous models like the Perodua Arrows. You are one bumper swap away from making it look exactly the same as the Rush. It's the same with the Altiva as well. Just change the bumper and you can choose whether to look like the Daihatsu Rocky or the Toyota Raze. With this Veloz, the differences go much deeper than that. The actual body panels are different, not just the bumpers. The bonnet, both the front fenders, the lights, the bumpers, the grille, everything is unique to the Veloz. Technically, you can convert your Alza to look like this, but that's going to cost you a lot of money. Might as well just buy this from the get-go. But shift your perspective a little bit, look at it from the side, and then it's very clear to see the Alza and the Veloz share the same bones because the shape, the profile are exactly the same. But even then, the details on the Veloz do look pretty good. The wheels, they are bigger here, one size bigger, 17s instead of 16s, and this is one of the rare designs that look both classy and sporty at the same time. Even the wheel arches, the pronounced flares, are actually stamped right into the body panel, and then you've got all the chrome work. You've got a continuous line from the grille down the side, down the fender, all the way to the back. That is very classy. And then you've got that T-bar at the corners as well, very distinctive. Again, lifts up the whole look of the car. The headlights are different as well. They are sharper over here, a bit more sporty, and you've got integrated DRLs down there, which is missing in the latest Alza. At the side, even at the glance, it's easy to see that this is a much higher car, much taller car compared to the Alza. This has a ground clearance of 190 mm, a full 30 mm taller compared to the Alza. So to me, the Alza looks a little bit too lowered, a bit awkward for a large MPV. This to me fits the whole body much better. And there's a clear distinction between the two as well. The Alza is meant to look like a low MPV, similar to the original version, while this looks like a much more modern crossover. You've got a skid plate up front, this over-exaggerated fender flares on the side, you've got body cladding all around the car, and at the top you even have functional roof rails. This can support up to 75 kg. One more thing that's unique to the Veloz is the availability of a dual tone color option. Now this is going to cost you 1,300 ringgit extra, but personally I would suggest that you just forego this option altogether. Now I know a dual tone look is a big trend right now, but it only looks good on a car that was designed from the start to have a two-tone look. The Veloz clearly was not. Just take a closer look at the base of the A-pillar. There is no natural cut line for the dual tone color to start. Now it looks a little bit forced. So if you're buying a Veloz, I think you should just save some money, buy a single color. I think it looks a lot better overall. A much more meaningful upgrade between this and the Alza is this. You now have a second set of a keyless entry sensor to lock or unlock the car from the left side of this car. This makes it so much easier to have a quick access to the car from the left side instead of having to walk all the way to the right side to lock or unlock the car. I know the difference is only a few seconds each day, but it all adds up, and as a whole I think this makes the car feel a lot more premium, less of a budget car I think. At the back, the differences look far less dramatic compared to the front. It does have the flat wheel arches at the back as well, but if you look closely, those are actually plastic extensions just stuck on the exact same body panels as on the Alza. Even the lights, the corner sections are the same between this and the Perodua, but I will say this, the center section with the long continuous light with the big Veloz script do make the car look a lot nicer, far more distinctive at night. And then there's a lot of visual trickery in play here as well. This long line at the top plus the big grey section as well make the car look a lot wider than it normally would. And then you've got the vertical elements at the corners, make the car taller as well. So overall, this does look significantly bigger than the Alza at a simple glance. Inside, the Veloz is largely the same as the Alza. The basic layout, most of the touch controls are exactly the same between the two cars. The Veloz do have a bit of differences here and there. The center vent is shaped a bit differently. The top half here is a bit more rounded, slightly nicer in a way. But the bigger differences are in the details. Down here, the center part is covered in a nice leather with a Veloz badge over there, and it's a bit soft to the touch as well. That especially together with the ambient lighting on the door cards plus the center console over here really do lift up the cabin well beyond that of the Alza. To me, all the small things really add up to make this car feel more expensive as a whole. Moving on to the center screen, the Alza finally has caught up with the market with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the Veloz takes it a step further with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Together with a wireless charger down here, which the Alza lacks by the way, you now get a proper wireless experience. To me, that is the way forward. Moving on to the aircon controls, this here is a proper single zone automatic climate control system. In the Alza, it may have digital controls, but it is essentially still a manual aircon system. But beyond that, this just looks so much better. This twin dial design, it just fits the rest of the car so much better than in the Alza. There, they've just taken the exact same controls in the Myvi, slapped it on the dashboard of the Alza. It doesn't really fit. Here, it looks far more cohesive as a whole. It's the same with the driver's display as well. They've got the same 3 themes, but here the animation just looks so much nicer. Again, makes you feel like you're in a much more expensive car, and as a whole it really works. But the most significant upgrade is this, the telescopic steering adjustment that's available on the Veloz. Now, for a person of my height, it's not really that big of a deal, but for a much taller person who will be sitting like that without being able to adjust the steering wheel, is just going to be set too far away. Now, this may look cool to you, but it's just not safe. It's not comfortable for longer journeys. Being able to pull the steering towards you, now this is more like it. This makes a massive difference if you're a tall driver. But beyond all that, it really is almost identical between this and the Alza, and the same goes with build quality as well. In fact, this Veloz is actually manufactured by Perodua, not Toyota. It's made in the same exact plant as in the Alza. So all the plastics, the fit and finish, they feel exactly the same in this car as it does in the much cheaper Alza. Plus, you've got the exact same design niggles as in the Alza. This piece over here is just too empty, too plain. It looks like they've forgotten to design something to fit in there. And then for a car that is supposed to be an MPV designed for families and long journeys, there is just not enough cubby holes or cup holders in the center console over here. There's none actually. Where do I put my keys? Where do I put my coffee? And then there's this thing over here. To me, by far and away the worst part of the Alza and Veloz cabin over here. As you drive along, your left knee is always going to be resting against this hard and sharp piece here. Is just not comfortable. In the long run, yeah, I think I'm gonna have a big bruise on my knee. Not a good design at all. But like I said, most of those things are the same faults you'll find in the Alza as well, together with the Veloz over here. The one thing that is worse in this car compared to the Alza is the lack of a center lock button. In the Alza, you have a nice button in the middle here to lock or unlock the car. In the Veloz, yeah, no button there. You have to use the old school rocker switches on the side, which, yeah, just feels way too 90s, I think. But in the back here, the Veloz is nothing short of excellent. There's plenty of room, both leg room and headroom, and even for people who are much taller than me, they will fit in the back here, no issues at all. I am 167 centimeters tall. Even if you're 180, you will fit in the back here with room to spare, I think. And more than just room, the level of adjustability on offer here is impressive. You can just slide the seats all the way to the front to balance some legroom for the rear passengers, or as most people will, just push it all the way back to have all the space that you need. This car works excellently as a full 5-seater with a massive boot in the back. The seats themselves are also very comfortable. The base is very long, very nice, and the backrest can be adjusted to pretty much whatever angle that you want, upright or all the way down. Yeah, like I said, the level of adjustability here is impressive. Now, the backrest itself is a little bit short. As you can see, it's below my shoulder level over here. It needed to be this short for it to fold down and tumble forward properly. But I think for taller passengers, the lack of shoulder support over longer journeys can be a little bit annoying. But beyond that small annoyance, there's plenty to like with this rear quarters. The rear window goes all the way down. That's not a guarantee with most cars in this class, but this one does. And then you've got proper rear aircon vents that will blow directly to your face instead of small, tiny ones that will blow to your knees down there. You've also got plenty of cup holders down the center, on the side, 2 additional charging ports down there. You're pretty much set for long journeys in this car. And of course, you also have a pair of ISOFIX anchors to fit your child seat securely. As this is a 7-seater, there's also the last row to show you. To access the last row is very easy with a simple one-touch tumble feature like that. So you can just step in like easy as that. Once inside, you get a decent amount of space back here. Legroom is about decent. Headroom, I'm just about touching the ceiling right now. But as a whole, you can technically fit 7 adults in the back here, although for longer journeys, I think I can sit in the back here for about 1 hour, 2 hours max, nothing more than that. But for kids, this will be absolutely fine. You've got 12-volt power socket back here, plenty of cubby holes, plenty of cup holders. So yeah, a large family with plenty of kids will be just fine in this car. As for the boot, as a 5-seater, it's absolutely enormous with almost 500 liters of space. With all seats up, however, it becomes far less usable at just over 200 liters of room. Even then, you can just about fit 2 cabin-sized luggage bags in the back, which is more than you can say with most cars in this class. So what is the brand new Toyota Veloz like to drive? Well, in short, it is a monumental leap forward, miles better than the old Avanza, but at the same time, it is largely similar to the Alza. That is no big surprise there. What will surprise you, however, is that in certain ways, it is a genuine improvement over the Perodua. I'll get to that in a minute. For now, let's talk about the numbers first. There is a single engine option available, a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. This is a dual VVTi unit, exact same one fitted to the old Avanza as well. So the engine, that's not new, pretty much the exact same as before. Here it makes 106 PS and 138 Newton meters of torque, a few PS, a few Nm more than before. But yeah, if you can feel the difference, you're probably a robot. I don't think anyone can feel the difference between 1 or 2 PS either way. What you can definitely feel is the transmission, because finally the age-old 4-speed automatic has been retired, replaced by the brand new DCVT transmission. This DCVT stands for dual mode CVT. I shall not bore you with the details, but in short, it is a really good gearbox that is superior to most CVTs out there. It is smooth, it is fairly quiet, it is very quick to respond. It's just a great gearbox. The switch from a 480 to a CVT is nothing short of transformational. This is now a much better car because of the change. In the old car, I've always said there's nothing really wrong with a well-tuned 480. But the Avanza's 480, that wasn't a very good one. Because it was a utilitarian platform with a rear-wheel drive layout, it used a slightly older version of the automatic transmission as well. The shifts were not exactly smooth all the time, and the ratio spread was a little bit wide as well. Every time it downshifts, the revs really climb up and it becomes deafening in the car. Doesn't help that it's a very old car dating back almost 20 years now. This, however, is a truly modern experience. It is far smoother, far quieter, and in most cases, far faster as well. Now, this isn't a performance car by any means. Now, I've measured 0 to 100 in just about 13 seconds, or as some people call it, a whole eternity. But even then, it's not exactly an underperforming or underpowered car. This is, after all, an MPV. It's not a sports car or a performance car in any shape or manner. For everyday driving, there is more than enough performance on tap over here. Every time you ask for a bit more power, just press the throttle, and within half a second, within a split second, the car just moves forward. It reacts very fast. With the old 4-speeder, you have to wait for like a second for it to shift down and then to move forward. Here, it's much more snappy response. It is that much better because of this new CVT. If for some reason you are still one of those people who are absolutely allergic to CVTs, it's really time to grow up. Try one for yourself. It really is nowhere near as bad as you think. CVTs have come a long way since the early proton punch CVTs. Compared to the Alza, which of course shares the exact same engine, transmission and platform, this does feel slightly slower, slightly lazier in terms of response compared to the lighter Perodua. That has mostly to do with the different wheel size of this car. This runs on 17s rather than 16s in the Alza. The weight difference there count for the difference in performance on this car. Now, a lot of people think you change to a bigger set of wheels, you add on 5-10 HP immediately, but that is not the case. With a normal car like this, we're not talking about performance cars at all. Usually when you change to a bigger set of wheels, the overall unsprung weight is actually heavier with the bigger wheel. So you need extra power to get the wheels to move to begin with. It's the same with this car as well. It does feel a little bit lazier to get off the line, but once you're moving, it feels about the same. It's as good as the Alza is, which by all standards is already very good. Now, of course, there are much faster cars in the same class. The Honda BR-V, for instance, has a significant power advantage over these cars, both on paper and in feel as well. If I remember correctly, that felt far more powerful coming off the line, or even accelerating from 60 to 80, 80 to 100, and so on. That feels like the much higher performance vehicle overall. But like I said in the beginning, this is an MPV, not a sports car. That difference in performance, while I would appreciate more power all the time, this car doesn't really need it. It doesn't feel like less of a car because of its lesser performance. Now let's move on to ride and handling, where this car is really good. I think we are coming to a point where a lot of people are just underestimating Toyota. A lot of people still think that Toyota makes, uncle, boring kind of cars with very sloppy handling, but recently they've gone through a bit of a rejuvenation. The Veloz is no different. Now it feels like a really nice car to drive. The steering loads up through corners, very surprising in a way, and the suspension is very well sorted. This, because it rides a fair bit higher than the Alza, I think has a much nicer ride quality as a whole. The additional wheel travel of this car, I think, makes it ride much better through bigger, more significant bumps. But even through faster highways and so on, this deals with undulations and mid-corner bumps in a better way compared to the Alza. As a whole, this really is a much nicer ride and handling package compared to the Alza. I remember being very impressed by the Alza's ride and handling package, but this takes it to the next level still. It is that much better. But of course, it's not quite the best in the class yet in this department, because we still have the Mitsubishi Expander to deal with. That to me is even better to drive, is even more comfortable to ride in. So yes, that is a higher standard still, but compared to the old Avanza, even compared to the current Alza or the BRV, this is really good in isolation. By itself, you will be impressed by this new Veloz. As for fuel economy, I've driven this car for over 300 kilometers now, and as a whole, I think it is nothing short of excellent again. Through a mixture of roads, through traffic jams, through highways, through stop-start traffic and all that, I've averaged around 15 kilometers per litre with this car. That is super impressive. In fact, my Bahasa Malaysia and Chinese language colleagues drove this car for a much longer period, and they averaged 15.7 kilometers in their drive. I think if you were to drive this car slowly enough with a bit more care towards fuel economy, you can easily bring this up to 20 kilometers per litre. This is one of the reasons why that I think petrol cars still have a long way to go here in Malaysia. With a modern car that can easily do 20 kilometers per litre, and our fuel prices being as cheap as they are, well, I shouldn't say cheap, I would say affordable at 2 ringgit and 5 cents. That is still very much affordable for most people out there. There is still a lot more life left in a petrol and ICE powered car like this. Achieving that excellent fuel economy figure has mostly to do with the DCVT gearbox, because this has a very wide spread of ratios. Going at a 110, 120, the engine will just barely tick over at under 2000 RPM. Now this is supposed to have the ratio spread of an 8-speed automatic, and looking at the rev range, yes, I can definitely believe that. To go long distances, to go to Penang and back or JB and back, this is one of the most economical cars you can drive right now. The fuel economy tests were carried out with BH Petrol Infinity, the fully imported premium fuel with maximum German additives for peak performance to give you more power, mileage and more savings. Okay, now on to refinement before we wrap this up. In terms of wind noise and road noise, this is again a huge improvement over the Avanza. That just feels like a truck compared to this car, how loud that one is. With this car, the engine can be a little bit loud if you really do push it, but by and large, if you drive the cars like a normal person, like you do own the car, it feels very nice and refined. As for road noise, it's also very good. I would have expected, since this runs a bigger engine wheel option compared to the Alza, this would feel more noisy inside, but that is again not the case. Perhaps it's got to do with the higher quality tyres as standard on this car, or maybe they've put on slightly more sound insulation. But either way, what you end up with is a slightly more refined car as a whole. Wind noise, however, is not that great. As soon as you touch above 100 kilometers per hour, you get a bit of wind noise coming in through the sides over here, and once you go past 120, it is really loud. If I were to guess, I would blame this solely on the window visor that's fitted as standard on this car. Pretty much every time I drive a car with window visors, you go above 110, 120, you get a lot of whistling noise coming in, and I question why you need them in the first place. With this car, unfortunately, you don't have an option. You buy a Veloz, you get that as standard. Perhaps you can just rip it out as soon as you take it out of the showroom, maybe. Now lastly, the Toyota Safety Suite. Now this being a twin to the Perodua Alza, it's exactly the same as the Alza's set of functions. You've got autonomous emergency braking, you've got adaptive cruise control, level 2 semi-autonomous driving, you've got blind spot monitor as well, and everything does work as advertised. However, it's nowhere near as good as more advanced systems like in even Toyota's more expensive range, because this car relies solely on a set of cameras up front with no radar on the front bumper. This is technically a much cheaper way to offer all these features for your car. Precisely because of this cheaper, simplified setup, it is nowhere near as refined as a much more expensive, more elaborate system we've seen in the market today. So yes, while the adaptive cruise control and the active lane keep system do work, technically the window of operation is much narrower compared to most other cars. Out on the highway, I think it'll work perhaps 30-40% of the time. Most of the time, it'll say you can't read the road lines or whatever, and you have to drive it like normal. But then again, at least this car has a complete active safety feature. Now remember, we are comparing this car to the old Avanza. That car had absolutely nothing. It had 2 airbags, no active stability control, and nothing else. This is a huge leap forward. The fact that this car is fitted with 6 airbags and a full suite of active safety systems is still very much appreciated. Well done, Toyota. Welcome to 2023. So that's my full review of the Toyota Veloz here in Malaysia. Compared to its class rivals, the Honda BR-V clearly has a much more powerful engine, while the Mitsubishi Xpander still has an edge in terms of ride and handling. But if you consider the car as a whole, with its super practical interior and complete safety features, this is easily the pick of the bunch, the best MPV you can buy in this price. Compared to the Alza, it's a much harder story, of course. Is it going to be justified spending a full 20,000 ringgit more for this over the Alza, essentially the same car? Well, that's much harder to discuss. Objectively, purely in terms of value for money, of course the Alza is the better buy. It's the same car for less price, so of course that makes more sense if you look at it that way. But if you start factoring subjective aspects such as looks, brand appeal and everything, then this starts to make a little bit more sense. The Alza is now selling like hotcakes. They are going to be everywhere in Malaysia, so this is the one I would prefer to be seen driving in. And then I genuinely think that this has a better suspension system compared to the Perodua, and all the other small upgrades this car has over the Alza do add up as a whole. Life to me is all about progression, from the watch that you wear, your job title and so on, and it's the same with cars as well. Now with this, you get to move from a Perodua, which most of you already have, onto a Toyota. That to me is a far more prestigious brand. Try to look at it this way: a Honda Civic offers most of the same things as a BMW 3 Series or a Mercedes-Benz C-Class at half the price. But given a choice, given that we can afford it, most of us will go for the much more expensive models. It's the same with this, of course, to a lesser extent, but still the same logic applies. Me personally, given the choice and if I can afford it, I will definitely consider the Veloz over the Alza. What do you think of that logic? Let me know in the comment section below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone. This review is powered by BH Petrol Infinity. Switch to the premium fuel today to enjoy more power and better fuel economy.